So let's talk about big guns. This is being pushed up to my channel here under the Wargaming Tactics 101 because this is a template. This is a fundamental that exists in many war games, and you kind of have to be careful with what you're getting yourself into because it might not turn out like you think. Or if it attracts too much attention, is that a good thing or a bad game? And again, what we're looking at is a top-down level of a template that you can apply, a framework, a checklist that you can apply to any wargaming system that you are playing, that you are studying, that you are looking to learn to build your Tactica. Cut down that learning curve, right? Instead of 10 games, get you there in 5, or maybe even listening to this vlog and trying it out in your next game. Now, if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know I love big guns. I like big tanks too, but I like big guns that can do a lot of damage. There's just something satisfying about bringing massive firepower onto a target and just obliterating it. We see, even though I said we weren't going to go into specific systems, we see something like Battletech. I love autocannon 20s. In Battletech lore, in the inner sphere, the weapon with the biggest punch, it's an autocannon 20 in that it does 20 points of damage. Second to that are autocannons and PPCs that do 10 points of damage. Autocannon 20, look, you've got your fancy tactics, you've got your outflank, you've got your interlinked squads and lances. I'm going to bring autocannon 20s and just start blasting away. Fabulous. Other wargaming systems, anytime that I can play Chain of Command, fantastic World War II rule set. One of the best. And on a sidebar, I uploaded to the channel here under the Chain of Command playlist, exploring some rules, exploring some Tactica, showcasing this system. Absolutely fantastic. But being a historical war game, one of the things that you do is you select your army, and the lists that you pick from depends on the time period. Obviously, late war, mid-war, and then end of war, how we're exploring that. I don't like to play early war because I want my big tanks. I want my tank destroyers. I want all the craziness. And when we get to later war, often what you'll get in Chain of Command to illustrate this is you have a set army list. So here are your units. And then based on the mission or what you want to play, you have support points. And these can be used to upgrade some squads, buy some tanks, and barricades, machine guns, things like that. Razor wire, anywhere from 1 to 3 support points all the way up to like 10 or 15. And most games maybe have 5. I blow all my support points on a single tank. You let me put down a King Tiger, just the firepower on that, fantastic. So if I can get big guns on the table, I get big guns on the table. Now, tactically, here's where things kind of get interesting. If I put a big gun down on the table, if it's a modern wargaming system, there's going to be some sort of point value built into it. It's not going to come cheap, right? In Battletech, the bigger guns get mounted on the heavier mechs. They cost more battle value. Chain of Command, more support points, right? So I have to look, and whatever currency I have to buy my units, squadron points, power points, battle value, gold crowns, whatever that's going to be. If I buy a unit that has a big gun and can do a lot of damage, I have to look and say, well, if we're playing a smaller point game, then I might not be able to cover enough bases to win the mission. I might have the biggest gun on the table and do some damage and blow some stuff up, but I'm not going to be able to accomplish the tabletop mission. It's easy to overspend with big guns. The second aspect is balance. Can I get enough redundancy on the table? Now, to sidebar, this idea of redundancy is 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is some. If I'm trying to shoot at a unit in a war game or make an attack, I've got to hit. I'd like to roll more dice or have a large volume of attack. I have to be in range. I have to have a good chance of damaging you and destroying you, catching you not in cover, all within that framework. Often what you see with a big gun is it costs a lot of points. You're paying for a lot because the balance is like, hey, if this thing hits your tank, you're done. You're smoked. The whole thing explodes. There'll be artificial limitations put on it. You can only get one. You can only buy 1 or 2, or likewise, maybe you can only put 1 down on the table. Now, if we go back to Chain of Command, this is kind of a small action type game. I put down a King Tiger. It's going to dominate, but it only has one shot, say, per activation. Generally, you hit because I can switch to high explosive and just pound something there, or switch to armor piercing, but it's still only one shot. It's fearsome in chain of command because you've also got tank shock and machine guns and things like that. But in a larger type game, it might get lost because while I have a big gun, there's just so much stuff on the table. Or worse, something where you have a big gun, but it's only one shot. Example of that, Warhammer 40,000, playing Space Bugs, playing Tyranids. I've got my Tyranid army, and we've got a new Hive Fleet player at the club, and coming along, he's looking at my lists, and we're kind of talking about things. And back in the day, he was like, Fritz, why don't you play a Tyrannofex? Now, maybe you know what that is. If you don't, Tyrannofex. It's this big biologically bioengineered space bug that's like, think Starship Troopers, like a powerful plasma gun with a strength 10. In Warhammer 40K, 10 is the most powerful. Strength 10. Cannon. Why don't you take this, Fritz? It's awesome. Well, I don't take it because the bug itself is vastly expensive. Then I got to pay more points. At the time, I got to pay more points to get this gun. And it's only one shot. Yes, it's got whatever range at the time, 48 inches, essentially effective entire tabletop. AP low, high strength, good ballistic skill. It's only one shot. It's not worth it. So you have to be careful with your big gun and see what we're doing. And artillery in other games could qualify as big guns. Take a long tom in Battletech, right? Something like that versus a thumper in Battletech. When you take a big gun, now this is where we so you've answered those questions to determine, is it worth it? And if it's not worth it, tactically the meta, where you're like, Fritz, I've crunched the numbers, it's not worth it, but I see you loading up on autocannons like candy and all this other stuff. Well, sometimes you got to bring guns and you know what to expect. So the other aspect is it'll bring the heat. It'll bring the hate. Your opponent can't let that live. Certain situations when I start advancing my Victor, a Victor is a mech with an autocannon 20. When I start advancing that up the table, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. You can see it. You got to stop it. You got to throw some weight behind it to blow off that armor, obliterate it. So I can't be angry when I start utilizing my big guns and my opponent's like, look, I can't let that live. So they throw enough stuff at it, it gets blown up. I can't rage quit or sad face it. That's what it is. Now, of course, I'm going to do my best. Two things are happening to finish out the Tactica here, to build your checklist. When my big guns are active, two things are happening. I'm doing my best to counter anything that you possibly have to stop it or prevent it from operating. Maybe I have a screening unit, so I'm running my Victor up, but then I've got some mechanized infantry or hover units that move very fast, that move ahead to skirmish and push out of the way. Maybe I'm utilizing other things to kind of attack in other areas to slow you down, right? I'm going to try and do my best. You're going to try and do your best. But while you're shifting resources to attack my big gun, and big guns never tire, the Tyrant was absolutely right about that. This idea of, can I use other units to achieve something? So if I'm advancing my Victor mech and you pull off 2 or 3 units to engage it and that leaves an opening, do I have some other units, some Jenners or something fast or whatever, warrior attack helicopters that I can now take advantage of the fact that you've shifted material around or you've committed some units that you weren't going to commit, that I was waiting for you to hold back or see what's going to happen. And now that they're in play trying to stop my big gun, now I've got a little bit of an opening. So keeping your big guns alive, and as they're shooting and blowing stuff up, being open to opportunity if your opponent acts elsewhere. A little bit more breathing room, being able to capitalize on that. Do you bring big guns? Yes, I think if you've got some strong firepower, there are times you bring it. But you got to be aware of the pitfalls, and then you can't fall into the trap of, and I'm there all the time, I love damage. Overdoing it to the point where on paper it looks good. But you just don't have enough tactica to fill things out to win on the actual tabletop.